If you love to travel, you are going to need a travel agent. And if you want the best travel agent, you are going to need Boull Travel. Boull Travel can help you with any kind of holiday wherever you want to go in the world, taking care of every last detail. From package holidays through to fully customized itineraries where you are completely in control of where you go and what you do. And the best part, there are no charges whatsoever. Rated excellent on Trustpilot. Start your next adventure right now by going to boullystravel.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Jason Boull Travel Podcast. This is part of our mini Canadian series where we're looking at all the different regions across Canada. And we're joined here today with Della Tully, who is going to talk to us today about St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. Welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you, Jason.
No problem at all. I always love having you on because you talk about so many different places. You have a really, really broad skill set. So I'm kind of looking forward to what we're going to learn about today. So just tell us a quick bit about your kind of connection with St. John's.
Well, St. John's is a relatively new destination for us in terms of representation. And we're very excited because obviously it is the most easterly point in North America, as I'm sure we're going to probably keep saying throughout the presentation. But it's obviously Atlantic Canada. It's the closest city pretty much that you can get to from the UK and certainly from Ireland in terms of Canada. So just over 5 hours from the UK and 4 hours something from Ireland. So it's crazy close for Canada. I think we're all guilty of thinking, Canada, it must be 8+ hours on a flight, but it is, the closest place you can get to. So that's a big USP for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. Absolutely. In the 1490s, it was founded and is part of that whole Cabot Trail, which also incorporates other Atlantic provinces. So yeah, it has an awful lot of history, has a lot of Irish and UK links as well in its heritage. So it has a lot of common feelings for us in terms of visitors, but also it's very, very different, of course, and offers a lot of things that people go to Canada for, the great outdoors, the culture, the hospitality, the friendliness of locals. So it pretty much has a bit of everything, really.
Okay. So St. John's has got kind of a rich Irish background. Now, how did that come about?
A lot of immigration, really, from the UK and Ireland, but specifically Ireland. So a lot of that started up with trading, fishermen. Cod is king I'm just trying to think like the best way to put about the Irish ancestry. It kind of goes back, it's more 1700s onwards rather than right the way back to the 1490s when it started. But I mean, basically through immigration between Ireland and Newfoundland and Labrador, trade that went on through the centuries, Irish immigration predominantly more from the 1700s kind of like and beyond, but yeah, just this kind of melting pot really. And a lot of it started out through fishing, through cod fishing predominantly, but that's where the links are quite often between Ireland and the UK.
And how does that affect like the pub scene and music and language and things like that?
Well, you go anywhere and there's an Irish pub, right?
Absolutely.
Where you are in the world, you can normally find one, but there is a lot actually in St. John's in particular on George Street, which is pedestrianised in the evenings. That's kind of 2 blocks of pubs and restaurants only. That's basically what is there. So a lot of people will head to George Street. There's other streets, it's not just one, obviously, but yeah, there's a lot of Irish bars and live music, of course, which always kind of goes with an Irish bar, doesn't it?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. When you get over to kind of Island End, it's just like there's always live music playing. I love that buzz and the feeling it creates. It's always fantastic.
We all want that, don't we?
The coastline around St. John's is pretty dramatic and wild. So what's some of the best ways for visitors to experience it?
Well, there's lots of hikes kind of from St. John's. There's also some self-driving routes, one of which is called the Irish Loop, funnily enough. So there's lots of different self-drives you can do from St. John's. or hikes. And the East Coast Trail is actually over 360 kilometres, and it goes through 30 historic communities within that trail. And it's a free hiking trail. Some of it can be a bit rugged, but there are parts that you don't have to be this super athletic person that's going to be going off hiking for hundreds of miles or anything like that. You can just incorporate parts of it. So it's really accessible for everyone.
Yeah, okay. Signal Hill and Cape Spear are the two really big draws to the area.
Signal Hill is very much a St. John's institution. People often hike up to Signal Hill. It's one of those famous hikes from the Battery. It can be a bit blowy up there, so it's weather dependent because it sits on the Atlantic. You get amazing views over the harbour of St. John's and all the colourful houses and buildings there. Cape Spear is another one. Cape Spear you kind of drive out to. Again, you can hike, but most people, within 20 minutes, it's a 20-minute drive pretty much from St. John's up to Cape Spear. Both of them offer dramatic views. Cape Spear has a little cafe up there and just amazing views, and the Atlantic Ocean just crashes up against the rocks. You go up some steps that takes you up the hill, some wooden steps, and there's a lighthouse and a cafe up there at Cape Spear. On Signal Hill as well, you've got tours that basically go on there, particularly in the summer months. Both are just really good vantage points if you want to look out over that Atlantic Ocean, which is really, like I said, what St. John's is known for, its position right there. Cape Spear, of course, is the first sunrise of North America. So that's their kind of claim to fame. A lot of people actually head to Cape Spear early in the morning, because of they want to be there and say that, they've got the first sunrise. So
are there any boat tours that you'd recommend for first-time visitors?
Yeah, lots of boat tours. And the reason for that is icebergs and sea life and whales, basically. We have the largest humpback population in Canada of whales, and whales can be seen pretty much from May through September. So a lot of boat tours focus on that. If you're there in May and June, it's iceberg season. That doesn't carry on all through the summer. The whales kind of do, but the icebergs are an early summer, late spring thing to go and see, and we're really much known for that because we're in what they call Iceberg Alley. And Iceberg Alley means that those icebergs drift down, they break up in Greenland and drift down past St. John's, which is a real spectacle. People just crave going to see it. And so a lot of the tours, the boat tours like O'Brien's, Gatheralls, just to name two of them, have tours that combine, if you're there early summer, icebergs and whales, and also puffins and sea life. We've got a huge sea life population, puffins specifically, and they basically come in the summer for about a month. They have their chick. They only have one chick each, and then they leave again. So they nurture that chick there for just a month or so over the summer months. So a lot of the boat tours focus on those kind of things, sea life and, and the whales and the icebergs.
Yeah. Talking on the icebergs, there's always some incredible photos around of Iceberg Alley, and you see this little house, and then there's this enormous kind of iceberg behind it as it's kind of going past. But there's actually, end of last year or this summer, a huge iceberg that's broken off from Greenland, isn't it? And I think it's coming through. It's like absolutely enormous.
Yeah, some of them are like double-decker buses. And that's also a link to the story around the Titanic, because there's a Titanic museum in St. John's. It was the iceberg that caused the whole Titanic disaster. And there's a museum there dedicated to it because St. John's received the very first Morse code message from the Titanic and sent help. So it is linked through icebergs as well to that Titanic story, which is obviously the sad side of icebergs, but they are really phenomenal to see up close out in the water.
Yeah. Now, they have like conservation programs out there. Can people take part in those conservation programs? Do you know?
I don't know that.
Let's skip that one.
Sorry. That's a good question, but no, I don't know. I'm sure they do, but I wouldn't like to say they do and then they don't. Sorry.
Let's talk about food. Kind of what are the must-try dishes of St. John's and what can people expect?
We've got quite a lot of breweries. I mean, that's a drink, obviously not food, but we are famous for a number of breweries. One of the most famous is probably the Kiddie Viddy brewery, which is down in an area which is like a little fisherman's community right in the centre really of the city, or just outside the centre of the city. People love to sit at the brewery and have seafood, good old standard fish and chips, but it's really special in St. John's. I'd say probably the top foods really revolve around seafood because of its location. Cod is king in St. John's. It was a huge subsistence for St. John's and Newfoundland and Labrador in general. The seafood is amazing, and there's lots of restaurants that really do that really well. I didn't have any bad meals at all whilst I was there. So the food was great wherever you went.
Yeah, it just got me the brewery. Absolutely love a good old brewery and a bit of home brew. And I've made some myself as well. On other podcasts, I'm going to talk about a little bit.
Right.
Yeah,
Another big one is the Bannerman Brewery, actually, as well, in downtown St. John's. That's one of those places. It's almost like a brewery and a cafe in one. So a lot of people think there won't be any food or anything there, but people just go and have coffee, which sounds weird in a brewery, but that's one of our most popular ones as well in St. John's.
That sounds awesome. And we were talking earlier as well about the screech-ins. Can you just explain what that is to people?
So the screech, it is very much a kind of a Newfoundland and a St. John's thing, and it involves kissing cod and rum is all I'm going to tell you. And the rum is a specific rum that's now become very, very popular because it's used in the screeching-in. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of places that actually do it. Christian's Pub is one of the ones that's really, really well known for the screeching-in. But yeah, it's one of those things that people love to do whilst they're in St. John's. It's kind of a tick, they have to do it, a tick box thing.
Hopefully there's quite a bit of rum before you start kissing the cod.
Yes. Yeah, it doesn't sound very appealing, does it? But, it's one of those things.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I'd give it a go. So moving on to kind of like different travel styles now. And St. John's is a great destination for families, kind of couples and solo travelers, kind of all the above, really. So kind of what is there for those different types of groups?
I would say that definitely we attract all three, because it's such a great destination for hiking and outdoors. We get solo traveler groups come to St. John's, but equally, like you say, couples, a lot of honeymooners actually love St. John's and Newfoundland and Labrador in general because of the scenery and just, the diversity that we have within the whole province. And, as we were saying, going back to live music, having fun or whatever, obviously it attracts a lot of couples and, families. Again, we don't have a huge amount of what I would call man-made attractions, but, kids love getting out, seeing whales, doing things like that, they potentially don't have the opportunity to do in their own home country or hometown or destination. So I think, anything that's gets kids outdoors is always a plus. In terms of theme parks and stuff like that, obviously we're not made for that kind of, but there is a huge amount that people can do outdoors and tours and things like that. Walking tours, as we said earlier, boat tours, hiking, biking, pretty much, all kinds of outdoor activities. You can also zip line actually in and around St. John's as well.
And that's something I've been getting from this whole kind of mini-series that we've been going through is that obviously, you want the theme parks, you got to go down south, got to head out to USA. But it's about having a completely different travel experience. It's about not having to fly and flop and sitting in the hotel all day or by the beach all day by the pool. And it's not about just going on the adrenaline-filled kind of theme parks. But if you're looking for that reconnect family time, if you're looking to be able to switch off your mobile phone, not get a Wi-Fi signal, kind of get back out and just re-explore and discover nature, with lots of activities to do. There's loads of walks, hikes, mountain bikes, kayaks, canoes. There's so many different things to kind of do and explore nature out there and get back to the way that travel really should be, which is family time, reconnecting with the family and also with nature. And I just think that Canada does that so well, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the thing is as well with St. John's, you can build it into a larger itinerary. So if you really want to do a big explorer kind of adventure itinerary with your kids or with your partner or whatever, there's links by ferries to Nova Scotia, for example. You can fly from other Atlantic provinces into St. John's. We actually have several airports in Newfoundland and Labrador. So depending on what kind of itinerary you want to do, St. John's is a great gateway. The other thing just to mention, particularly if you have a family, and you're thinking, oh, I dread taking my kids on a long haul. As we said at the beginning, the fact it's a much shorter flight and you're in Canada is a big appeal. I've traveled with my family when they were young, and if you've got that sort of 10-hour plus flight, and then you add on your check-in time and all that. It's a long time, particularly if the kids are younger. The other thing, which is a really big benefit, is the fact that we're only 3.5 hours time difference from the UK. If you talk about Western Canada, 8 hours time difference, it takes a lot of adjusting. And kids, when they're awake, they're awake. They don't care what time zone they're on. So it just really struck us when we went out, myself and my colleague, that, you know, with a 3.5 hour difference in time, you're not doing that thing where you wake up at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. because your body clock's telling you, oh, right, this is 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, you should be awake. So it means you can literally do a long weekend in St. John's, to be honest, because you're not having to factor in that time to get over the flight and the time difference when you're there. So I think that's quite a big thing if you've got a young family.
Yeah, so we're saying a long weekend, kind of how long? We're talking about three nights, 4 nights?
That would be the average stay. You could stay a week. There's plenty to do. You can hub and spoke from St. John's and visit a lot of other areas, you know, of Newfoundland and Labrador. We have people that fly into St. John's and then fly out of another gateway like Deer Lake, which is more westerly. St. John's is the most easterly airport in Newfoundland and Labrador. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways to connect, you know, to other destinations as well from St. John's.
We'll be getting down to Toronto, taking an internal flight.
Yeah,
getting
absolutely.
Down to Toronto, you break up that whole time frame as you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we can connect to, like you say, the other maritime provinces, or, you know, just really kind of anywhere on that Eastern Canada seaboard. So if you really want the big city fix of Toronto, you know, or one of the other cities on the East Coast, then you could combine us with those as well.
Yeah, so we talked about it being a short flight. Could you just remind us again, what was the flight time?
It's about 5 hours 20 from the UK, from London, and it's under 5 hours, about 4.5 hours from Dublin. And we've got a new WestJet service into St. John's. So previously, pre-COVID, there was a non-stop that then vanished. And now WestJet have got a non-stop service 4 times a week from London and then twice a week from Dublin. So, you know, if people do want to do that long weekender, go out on a Thursday, you know, back on a Monday or Tuesday or something like that, they can do that with Air Canada. You're going to come in via another gateway.
Yeah, of course. So in terms of kind of UK airports, what's the best services heading out?
From the UK, it would be London Gatwick with WestJet. You can go, if you wanted to fly also kind of non-stop, you've got obviously Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Leave it out there.
I don't know the answer to that. It's mainly, there's no other non-stop other than Gatwick, basically, Dublin. Okay. So those are the 2 gateways from the UK and Ireland.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So in terms of getting around and kind of planning our visits, is it best to do St. John's by guided tour? Or is it better to get out and explore yourself?
You can do either. In the summer months, there's a hop-on, hop-off shuttle, which is really good to get around. You can get around without having a car. I mean, one tip I would say, if you want to rent a car, don't wait till you get there, particularly if you're there in the peak summer months, June through August. It can get really busy. A lot of people do want to hire a car and obviously then go off and explore the wider province and beyond from St. John's. So always pre-book your car hire if you want one. If you don't want a car, you can get around Ubers, taxis, shuttle. Also, like even if you want to go out on a boat tour, which generally they're about 20 minutes out from sort of those boat tours we spoke about earlier with whale watching and icebergs. It's about a 20-minute drive out from the city centre, but they will come and collect you. Obviously, they add on a bit more for doing that, but they will. There is shuttles from downtown St. John's out to where the boats leave. So you can actually do that, you know, not have a car.
Yeah, and we can, as we talk to our kind of clients and sort of put the package together for them, we can take care of the car hire, transfers, those types of things, and all those excursions in that they want to do as well. So, yeah, it's good to know.
Yeah.
What's a local tip then that you would have? Or there's something that a tourist really should or shouldn't do?
I would definitely say get out on the water, because obviously that's what St. John's is all about. Definitely go up to Cape Spear and Signal Hill for those famous views. Get down to George Street, Water Street, any of those streets, and sample some of the nightlife. The hospitality, we always sort of go on about hospitality in Canada, but particularly in St. John's is amazing. You have this Irish Canadian accent dialect going on, which is nowhere else. It is literally just a Newfoundland and Labrador thing. And I've done most of Canada. And I have met people actually previous to us working for St. John's and thought, wow, that sounds a bit Irish, that accent. Like, what's that about? But they switch honestly between sounding literally full on Irish to then much more of a sort of normal, if you like, Canadian accent that we would expect. But yeah, I mean, I would just, take your time to sort of sit in a coffee shop, meet locals. They will talk to you. They really do want to engage with visitors and they appreciate the tourism. And I think, definitely spend sort of 3 nights minimum in St. John's before you start then maybe branching out and seeing different areas. The boat tours are amazing. And I think that's a real way to get an appreciation of what surrounds you. That Atlantic Ocean that surrounds you is just so important.
Okay. So just kind of wrapping up now. If someone's been listening, they're starting to think, you know what, I'd love to get out to St. John's. What would you say to change your mind and make St. John's their next stop that they're going to go and make, the next holiday book?
I would say, we've already mentioned it, but the closeness in terms of where we are located on that Atlantic. So you have that very short flight in terms of Canada from London or Dublin. You have got a really unique destination in the people are just amazing there. Like I said, the hospitality is second to none. I think we're all guilty of maybe thinking, oh, Canada, it's got to be the Rockies. But, Newfoundland and Labrador has 5 UNESCO heritage sites. So, you would never really expect it because we're all schooled into thinking, aren't we? Oh, Vancouver, BC, Alberta combos and things like that. But the Atlantic side has so much to offer in scenery, outdoor adventure. It's not just about those big cities that we all know about. St. John's is very colourful in every way. It's kind of a bit of a melting pot like so many coastal cities are. You've got these jelly bean row houses because if you look down on St. John's from Signal Hill or Cape Spear, you get these really beautiful kind of jelly bean coloured houses. So it's a really colourful city in every way.
Oh, fantastic. And finally, for somebody who's listening today and they're going to take that next step, it's now like, yeah, I'm absolutely going to go and do it. What's the best way and how do we go about planning to get out there and go and experience the best of St. John's?
I think obviously I've been a travel agent, I've been a tour operator, and I completely appreciate the value in booking through someone that's going to piece that together for you rather than you going on Expedia and booking a hotel here or whatever. I think, go to someone like yourself, Jason, or a travel specialist who can work with a Canadian specialist tour operator and, who knows the inside information. Don't just leave it to chance because things like if you want a car and you get there in the middle of August and all the smaller cars are gone, you're going to have to hire this great big 8-seater thing that was obviously more expensive than they wanted to pay, things like that. I would definitely pre-book as much as you can. And then you can, you don't have to sort the itinerary within an inch of its life. You can leave things to go with the flow, but definitely things like boat tours to see whales and icebergs. If you happen to be there on a weekend in the summer months, it's going to be busy because it's an international destination. You're not just talking about obviously Europeans traveling there. There's a big domestic audience from North America as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned there about working with specialist tour operators. So a lot of tour operators, there's some that go direct, but a lot of them only work with travel agents. And it's not until you really start to talk to those specialists, you understand the value that they really deliver to a package or to an itinerary. They just know all those little tiny unique things, the things you have to book in advance, the best tours to go and do. You put them together, you end up with this amazing quotation that is just encapsulating everything that you think you're going to, everything you wanted to achieve and more. But yeah, if you want to have that little bit of quiet time, and you can absolutely do it all. You can get those things built into it. So it's not until you start to use that service, you actually start to realize what you're missing out on by not using the service. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, your time's precious on holiday, isn't it? I mean, I know a lot of people sometimes say, we just like to go with the flow and things like that. But I think it depends. If you've got unlimited time, then that's fine. But if you're there on an average week or 2-week, holiday vacation, then, it's always good to plan. I certainly like to plan as much as I want to know that I'm going to be able to do those key things that I'm going for.
Exactly.
That's, I think, the key to it, really.
Yeah, and I've always been a kind of, I'm just going to go over it and see what happens. people who had young kids and things like that, and you just want to go and just relax, and it's kind of a time to just chill out a lot, isn't it?
That's right.
But kind of the older you get, or the more things you want to go and see and do, you realise that you just have to book it in advance. And if you don't, I mean, you'll never know what you don't know. You've absolutely sort of realise that there's so much more to travelling. There's so much more you can experience. There's so much more value that you'll get from a well put together package that will tick off all those magical things you want to go and see and do and explore in a way that's just totally stress free. You haven't got to think about, I haven't got to worry about it. It's all organised. The transfers turn up. It all just happens so easily. So, I completely agree with you massively.
Yeah, and you also have the protection of a travel industry partner. If something goes wrong, now we're all kind of like prone to things, natural things that we have no control over, fires, wildfires, things like that can happen when you're abroad. And obviously you hope that it never does. But if you're there and you've done it, and I think we're all guilty of it. You suddenly need to change something and you're thinking, oh my goodness, how do I get hold of anybody to then try and change something? Am I going to spend hours in my holiday, doing damage control because something's happened? Whereas with a travel agent, they're taking care of that for you as well. Your flight suddenly gets cancelled. Instead of you being the one onto Air Canada or any carrier that you might have used, your travel agent is taking care of that for you, which I think is a massive plus.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, it just really is, and the package protection you get, and the all of the atoll bondings that we kind of get with it as well. It does deliver a huge amount of value. 100%.
Yeah. I think we've done everything, haven't we? I think we covered everything. Yeah, I think we've done most of everything that was on the thing. Yeah, you've asked about St. John's in a long weekend. We've done that. Easiest way to get there. Guided tours. We didn't do multi-centre, but I think we spoke about multi-centres in that you can connect to Nova Scotia and things. So, I think I think we covered everything.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome. We finally got there, Jason. I managed to do it this time. I can't tell Jason that I still haven't had a response to my email about the Irish ancestry and the jelly bean houses, but it's the way it goes. Like I said, they're really busy, and that's what we're here for, is to handle stuff. So I try not to bombard them too much, but obviously with this, it's newer to us.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll do a quick sign off and then I'll just turn off the recording.
Okay.
Now. So thanks for joining us today and learning all about Newfoundland, St. John's and Labrador. Thank you, Della, for your time today. As ever, you've been really insightful, so thanks a lot for your help with that. If you're now thinking about planning a trip out to St. John's, I'd absolutely love to help you build that perfect trip and bring it all together for you. So you can reach out to us, either email us at jason@bouletravel.com. You can reach us by Facebook, our website. There's many different ways to get hold of us. Google us and get hold of us nice and easily. But I'd love to make that a kind of dream come true for you. Thanks and bye for now.
Thank you.